The Trump administration is going on a crusade. And I mean that in the actual historical context, that the Crusades were defensive wars, as opposed to being offensive wars designed to conquer people. No, they were defensive wars, and that's what's happening in the Trump administration right now. They're going to crusade against anti-Christian bias inside the federal agency, which is, a good thing, I think. Even though I am an atheist, I am not an enemy of the church. I am unconvinced. But this is a country built by Christians. All the founders were Christians. That's not up for debate. I've come around on that. I came around on that a long time ago. But like it's this is this is a Christian country. The majority of people in the country still claim to be Christian, at least nominally. So it is probably not a good thing that the federal government has some kind of bias against not just the majority of the population, but also against the principles that the that the founders held. That's not a good thing. So, Pam Bondi in Trump cabinet convenes task force to root out anti-Christian bias in the federal agencies. Bondi was joined by the leaders of the FBI, the DHS, the HHS, the DOD, and other senior cabinet officials. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi on Tuesday hosted cabinet officials from across the Trump administration for the first meeting of a new interagency task force aimed at aimed at eradicating anti-Christian bias within the federal government. During Tuesday's meeting, Bondi described the task force as one aimed at remedying the abuse under the Biden-led Justice Department and other federal agencies prior to Trump's second presidential term. Quote, as President Trump has stated, the Biden administration engaged in egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses. Bondi told a small group of reporters, "The president is right." She goes into specifically what she means, and a lot of it is bullshit. I've talked about it before, about how pro-life protests are treated way more harshly than pro-choice protests or Antifa riots or anything of the sort. Bondi was joined Tuesday by a long list of senior cabinet officials from across the federal government, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, FBI Director Kash Patel, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy. Other senior agency officials were also present. Bondi also used the meeting to highlight some of the actions of the Trump administration has taken to crack down on anti-Christian biases. To date, the Justice Department has dropped 3 ongoing cases against pro-lifers and redefined the FACE Act to help protect against what Bondi and others have described as weaponization of pro-life groups and others. Ultimately, quote, the First Amendment isn't just the line in the Constitution. It's the cornerstone of our American memory, Bondi said. It guarantees every citizen the right to speak freely, worship freely, and live according to their conscience without government interference. Protecting Christians from bias is not favoritism, it's upholding the law and fulfilling the constitutional promise. And that's true. They're not looking to give Christians preferential treatment, they're looking to give Christians equal treatment. If a Christian breaks the law, a Christian gets punished according to the law. Render unto Caesar and all that. Whereas, again, these pro-life rallies around abortion clinics and stuff are never violent. They usually, they're like people like these people end up getting brought up on federal charges. Some of them are doing time in prison because they stood in front of a door. Like they didn't actually block anybody's way in. All you had to do was just kind of walk past them, and you could have got into the clinic just fine. But so yeah, it is. They are treated differently. They're treated harsher. That's demonstrable. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said the group planned to use the meeting to hear from individuals who had been harmed as a result of anti-Christian sentiment under the Biden administration and various ways this bias may have shown up in their departments or agencies. That part of the meeting was closed to the press. Yeah, so the press didn't get to see that part. Shortly before reporters were escorted from the room, Fox News asked the Department of Justice and other members of the task force whether they would share any examples of the anti-Christian bias within their agencies or any of the personal stories that they plan to touch on in the closed-door portion of the meeting. The officials in attendance did not immediately answer the question, and Justice Department officials told Fox News and other reporters present that they would circulate more information after the meeting. Trump first created the task force via an executive order in February with the goal of rooting out anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the government. The president also selected Bondi to head up the task force, whom he praised as someone he trusted to fully prosecute anti-Christian violence and vandalism in our society. Remember, they burned down the church. You know, they had burned down a church that one day, whenever Trump got in trouble for allegedly using the Capitol Police to, break up a protest, even though the protesters had burnt down a fucking church earlier that day. The president also select. Oh, I already read that part. The task force. The task force first meeting comes just days after Politico reported that the Trump administration sent an internal cable to State Department employees ordering them to report any instances of coworkers displaying anti-Christian bias as part of the task force initiative. The internal cable encouraged employees to share information via tip form, noting that their responses could be kept anonymous, and was reportedly sent to embassies around the world as well as the department headquarters in D.C. Quote, Biden's Department of Justice abused and targeted Christians, Trump said earlier this year. Pro-life Christians were arrested and imprisoned for peacefully praying outside of abortion clinics. No more, he said in all caps. No more. Biden's Department of Justice abused and targeted Christians. Pro-life Christians were arrested and imprisoned for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics. No more. So yeah, going on a crusade, a defensive war against people who would seek to do Christians harm. Like I said, I do think this is a good thing. And again, let me just reiterate it. If a Christian breaks the law, they deserve to be punished according to the law. No more, no less. Same thing with, you know, leftists, atheists, anybody of any religion, really. If you break the law, you go to jail. Simple as. No need to bring religion into it, as far as I'm concerned. But if the government is currently in the process, or was anyway, in the process of specifically punishing pro-life protests, for instance, at a much harsher degree than pro-choice protests, or again Antifa protests, or you know trans protests, whatever, anything like that. If they, especially whenever you consider that the left-leaning, often very atheistic demonstrations are far and away more violent. They're violent more often, and their level of violence is, ridiculous. So good on Trump. Good on Pam Bondi and the task force. Fucking where is it? There, where's Cash? Oh, Cash isn't even there in this picture. Who is in this picture? Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Cash Patel ain't even there. Kristi Noem doesn't appear to be there, unless that's supposed to be Kristi Noem. I don't know. That doesn't look like Kristi Noem. It doesn't matter. Anyway, if you agree that Christians are being unfairly targeted, or had been unfairly targeted under the Biden administration, by all means, let me know in the comments below. Or if you disagree, if you think I'm stupid, if you think I'm pandering, by all means, let me know in the comments below. And like the video and sub to the channel, and follow my links, follow me on X, sub to all my other channels. But seriously, just whatever you want to do, you go ahead and you do it. Just as long as it involves throwing me a bone.